Welcome. I'm Jan Patterson. I'm on the steering committee for Theater Lovers Club. Thank you for coming tonight in the cold. I just want to start with... okay, I'm sorry. I think I'm yelling and I'm not. I want to mention a couple things coming up in January that you can also find all the information you need on theatersantafe.org. I know you know that. But anyhow, on January 3rd, we're going to do something a little different and go to the Lensic and watch the Seagull, Chekhov's Seagull, National Theatre Live from London. So that's a Tuesday night. Anyhow, and then wine and theater chat afterwards.
Or maybe before.
Or maybe before.
Or both.
So we're just, actually that's what we're going to do. Thank you for clarifying what we're going to do. So watch for that. Then on the 10th, we're going to go to Mexico School for the Arts, which I'm sure you're all familiar with. And Barbara Hatch and some of her talented seniors are going to do a presentation. They're going to talk about Art Spring, they're going to talk about their performance of the Cloud, they're going to talk about how it all works over there. If you haven't seen that building, this is a great opportunity to have kind of a guided tour focused on theater and learn more about that wonderful space. So again, check all that out on theatersantafe.org. If you're inclined to donate to Theater Lovers Club, that's what keeps us going. We often have to pay rent. That's usually what most of our costs are. And this lady over here, this young lady, has the familiar bucket. So year-end donations, we're happy to take them. All right. Okay. So,
or you can donate online.
True.
However, if Min gets her hands on you, you'll donate before you leave.
Yeah. We do thank you for all your support in the past. So I want to introduce our talented directors. Patrick MacDonald. This is Patrick right here. Patrick has directed and choreographed productions for theater companies across northern New Mexico, Los Alamos, Dixon, Taos, Santa Fe, etc. With the Fe Playhouse, he directed and choreographed the 2018 production of The Curious Incident of the Dog in the Nighttime. And then he choreographed in 2017 Cabaret. His directing work includes productions of Church and State, Young Frankenstein, The Pillow Man. His choreographic work also includes productions of Singin' in the Rain, The 11th, Thoroughly Modern Millie, You're a Good Man, Charlie Brown, The Mystery of Edwin Drood, I Love You, You're Perfect, Now Change, Young Frankenstein, Spamalot, Mary Poppins, Hello Dolly, Tick, Tick, Boom.
Emily Rankin.
Emily Rankin is an actor, a director, and an artist who's worked with various companies in and around Santa Fe, including the International Shakespeare Center, Santa Fe Classic Theater, Iron Meat Productions, and Meow Wolf. She most recently stage managed A Delicate Balance here at the Playhouse and the Mountaintop at the African American Performing Arts Center in Albuquerque. She is thrilled to be a part of tonight, I know, and a year with Frog and Toad. Anyhow, how this is going to work tonight, these guys are going to do this splendid event for us, and we'll quit at about 6:45. Is that okay with you guys? And take questions. If there are no questions, we'll just keep on dancing, okay? Go for it. Thank you, guys.
Hello, everybody. So, thought was we would talk about the entire process of what it takes to create a show. So I was going to start from the very beginning of how I was introduced to the show. So I'm going to ask Emily how she was introduced to the show, and then go through all of the different components of creating a show. So my introduction to A Year with Frog and Toad first came when Colin Hovde, the executive director of the Playhouse, called me up on my birthday, January 28th, 2022, and said, "Hi, we're doing a preview show for our season. Can you sing some songs for me?" "Sure, what songs am I singing?" "Oh, the Snails' songs from A Year with Frog and Toad." "I'll look it up and listen." I know know Emily had a different initial introduction to the show.
Actually, no. Well, my introduction to the show was you doing those numbers for the season announcement.
I didn't think that you'd done it, or like seen
I
it in
knew-
Texas.
I knew of the show because some friends of mine did this, they did the full production back in 2017, 2016, and it kept getting extended, and
And we extended too.
and we extended. So I knew of the show, but I didn't grow up really reading the stories of Frog and Toad, and I wasn't familiar with the music. But hearing Patrick
We were both in the same bucket.
perform some snail songs in January was so lovely, and I hadn't realized how fun the music was, so that was my introduction to it.
So who all actually, I know Suzanne has seen the show. Has anybody seen the show yet?
Not yet.
Woohoo!
Saturday night.
Been extended, we're running through the 23rd of December.
So it is a fantastic score. We are doing the Theater for Young Audiences version of the show. There really is a longer version of the show. The proper full show is about 2 45-minute acts, is what the real show actually is. But the Playhouse really wanted to try to encourage a new generation of theater lovers to see what theater is actually about, enjoy theater, become new lovers of theater. So continuing on with being introduced and suddenly covering Snail was this then sudden unknown response of people being like, oh, so you're doing this? I can't tell you if I don't know. Would it be fun? Sure. There was this constant back and forth of, at least on my side, was I going to be auditioning for the show and being in the show? Was I going to be choreographing the show? And
Directing.
would I be
All
directing
three.
the show? Would it be all three? So it was about the July timeframe where we were actually beginning to truly focus on the show. At that point in time, I knew I was for sure choreographing the show. Did not know if I was going to audition in the show, to be in the show or what, but I was for sure choreographing the show. And I started writing down ideas, listening to all the music. Again, it's a fantastic score. I highly recommend you just take a listen for yourselves and enjoy.
But watch out, because the songs will get stuck in your head.
Yes, they will. Oh, I'm singing songs in my head right now. I started writing out all the things that I was thinking to try to get a dialogue started with. At that point in time, they were thinking that Colin Hupty, who is the executive director for the Playhouse, was possibly going to be the actual director for the show. And so I started this conversation with Colin and Robin Raccoon, who is the artistic director for the Playhouse, on here's where my thoughts are initially, and what are you all thinking, so I know how to start planning what dances are going to be in the show. And I apparently wrote one hell of a great email describing what my ideas were, because the next thing I knew, I got an email back from both of them saying, so you want to direct the show? My motivation in at least initially hearing the music and my guttural response to the show was, I read through all of Arnold Lobel's stories, went through and bought that book, and the anthology of books, and in reading it, there is nothing in the actual literature that indicates a true proper place. It just has to be some place where you could have frogs and toads and snails and birds and turtles,
Lizards.
and all 4 seasons, because it is clear that all 4 seasons are in the books. And I went, well, why can't it be in Santa Fe? Why can't I have kids, knowing that this was going to be a December show, come to see the show, and then, this is my assumption of what parents would do with kids, take them over to the plaza to see all the lights, and the idea of them crossing over the Santa Fe River Park. Let your imagination run wild. It was my favorite thing to do as a child. I don't know what your response was as a child to theater and seeing shows.
Oh, yeah,
Let your imagination run wild.
absolutely.
And I wanted those kids imagining that Frog and Toad were right beneath them, snuggling in for hibernation, getting ready for another year of adventures and activities. So that was the then initial motivation. Emily got to see that email eventually.
I did, it was a great email.
Kept bouncing back and forth as to what was going to be happening when it was like, so will you direct it as well? Okay, I'll direct it. And then there was still talk of them wanting me to audition to be in it. It was like, I can't direct and be in a show by myself. I can't do that. There's no way to see what needs to be worked on. And at that same point in time, I had been choreographing for Santa Fe Classics Theater, and Emily was doing a show for the International Shakespeare Society at that moment in time, and we were basically rehearsing right next to each other, and went to go see Emily in a show, and it's like, so, remember what we did in February? Would you be willing to hate yourself enough to work with me if we're doing this? And if they force me into it, will you co-direct with me? Because I need somebody that I trust.
Patrick, you've been a joy to work with. Yes, I was brought in to just help support, mainly to help support Patrick's vision, since he was directing and choreographing and possibly at that time acting in the show as well. And so I was brought in as a stage manager and then also to support what Patrick was doing. And he's made my job very easy and very difficult at the same time.
I'm wonderful in the rehearsal room. I'm a nervous wreck in theater.
But you're great at creating spreadsheets and
I live in Excel.
really, nailing things down.
What do you put on the spreadsheet? That's interesting.
Patrick
Which spreadsheet?
the first one I saw that just made my little OCD heart warm was a spreadsheet of each costume change and how long it would take and how long we had. We have 37 seconds to get from snail to mole. We have 2 minutes and 3 seconds to get from bird into lizard. And one of the great things about doing Frog and Toad with tracks, as we are doing, instead of a live orchestra, is that you really can time things down to the second in advance. So we were able to go into the rehearsal process knowing a lot of what we would need and knowing where a lot of our challenges would be, and we were able to really plan for that right up front, which is so helpful, especially with a pretty limited rehearsal schedule. Because we started rehearsals on November 1st and then had our first preview on December 1st.
Wow.
So,
A musical.
And have Thanksgiving.
and had Thanksgiving in the middle. And
And COVID. And did you all have a COVID rush in?
Oh.
we did, we had several folks in and out due to various illnesses or other projects they were working on. So there was, thankfully, we have Jasmine Torres, who's our assistant director and the understudy for every character, and she was able to step in and really save our bacon several times. And we also had to, as we all know in these days, we had to cobble some stuff together through Zoom and have performers learning choreography over Zoom and all
Oh my
that kind of fun stuff.
Not a great way to have to learn.
Not a great way to have to learn, especially because the Zoom camera is flipped. So stage
Mirrors.
right looks like stage left.
Oh, no.
But we managed all of that. And also, the Playhouse has a lovely rehearsal space, so we were not on stage. So there were a lot of challenges going in, which is why it was so helpful to know a lot of
To
what we were
excel
facing.
through our way through everything. So Robin Raccoon was then, I can only claim Emily. Robin Raccoon was then, as well as Bobby Peatman as well for some of the support staff in terms of Carlene Kiernan and Jojo Romero, and why can I not remember Swaley's last name? Latimer. Finding our costume change assistant, and our run crew was Bobby Peatman. But Robin Raccoon found our music director, our lighting designer, our costume designer, and our set designer.
All of which are amazing.
Yeah, the whole
So
staff.
when did those people come on board
So
in the process?
technically, the set designer was on board before I was on board.
Oh,
Our music director was on board
The
the
day of
day
first
before
rehearsal.
rehearsals began.
wow.
But we made sure to cast a group of great singers so that the music director could easily step in. So James Johnson, who now runs Make Santa Fe,
And is on the board of the Fe Playhouse.
and then also does stuff for Meow Wolf in terms of James. I'm pretty sure James created some of the initial sets for the House of Eternal Return.
He's our set designer, which behind this curtain is a very exciting set.
Yes.
You'll all come and see.
So James, in his initial ideas, had ideas that were very much based on the original book's illustrations. And it was going to be a watercolor painted masterpiece. And then James read my email.
Uh-huh.
So I am one of those people who relies on my fellow creatives to say, I see where you're going, but I also know I have a budget, and let's work what we can with what is actually feasible. So my initial email that Emily saw, in describing how I saw the set actually working, I wanted a master round table for this entire space with 2 inset turntables within the large, so I could have 3, and that came from, so when I had listened to music as a choreographer, I'm not sure if it's really synesthesia or not, but I see motion when I listen to music. And it's then my brain processing of, do I put the human body through that motion? Do I put the human body into that shape? Or do I use a whole bunch of human bodies to make the shape of that motion? And all I kept seeing in my mind when I was listening to this music was this swirling effect, which was how I saw these 3 turntables interacting. And James immediately went, well, that's a lovely idea, that's not going to happen. But when you see James's set, you can totally see where then James was inspired by my description of swirls and motion and curves, and the entire set is just this curvilinear. There is only the dock is the only thing that's straight and rigid in the entire set.
And there is motion in the set as well with the motion of Frog and Toad's houses that kind of come on and then off again.
So that was the first layer of compromises between director and artistic director. We then had Max Doolittle come on board. So if you saw the effect here at the Playhouse in March?
February, somewhere.
It's early, around February.
Early 2022.
So Max designed the lights, and actually James also designed the set for the effect as well. So Max and James had worked together and knew how to work with each other. Little details like these chaser lights here were not in James's initial set design for the proscenium. That came from Max as a suggestion. But in describing to Robin when I found out that I would not get my turntables and I did not know how I was going to clearly bring moments in and out as the story quickly progresses in this condensed version, I was like, we're going to need fantastic lights, Robin. The only way to do this that I can figure out is really focused lights to jump the audience around the stage, to know where we're going, and to also be able to hide moments to deceive the audience to look over here when you're trying to hide what's happening over here. And Max then proceeded to create a lighting plot and a series of cues that poor Emily.
Oh, it's great.
How many light cues have you got?
That's a great question. Several hundred. I haven't counted them. It's a 73-page script, and there isn't a single page that doesn't have at least 2 light cues
that
Yeah.
in a 57-minute show.
I
Yeah.
think Get a Load of Toad probably has 70 in it, that song. But yes, I've been so impressed by what Max has put together and what he has the ability to do in this space with these instruments. It's been, yeah, bright, bold colors, big changes, light changes, lots of vaudeville inspiration. It's really lovely to see and really lovely to work with him. And in combination with James's set, which is more of a neutral Santa Fe color palette, it's really, they marry together really nicely.
It's also equally complicated to try to go through multiple seasons with I want to say
Frog and Toad.
I want
right?
to say a unit set, but it's not technically a unit set, but it's pretty darn close to a unit set. So how do you do that? And the only way to really do that is use lights, and so you need to be able to have stage colors that will accept light colors to change the color of the stage to be what you want it to be. Is that a particular question, Suzanne?
I gotta ask, I adored it, as you all know, but when did you bring in David Stallings to do the costumes?
That's what I was
Because
going to go
the
into.
way that the colors of the set and the lights and it all somehow creates something that's bigger than any one of them.
Yes.
Tell me about that.
So David Stallings was also a relatively later addition to the overall production design team. We had gone through technically 2 costume designers before that, and one for schedule reasons and one for family health reasons had to drop out, and so David stepped in graciously to create this. So David, depending upon how you want to read the books, the true story is Arnold Lobel, who is the author of the original stories, came out as homosexual relatively late in his life, and wrote the books as an overall tale of, it's 2 people that you can see have a loving relationship for each other, and you can interpret it as a true love relationship or friend-love relationship, however you want to interpret it. David wanted to pay homage to Arnold Lobel in his costume design and basically put the rainbow on the stage.
Yes.
Each character has their own color base and color palette that is a color of the rainbow, and then we have variations on each of those, and pink. Although some of the things that Bear throws on. And that literally, so again, we had a really, really short rehearsal process, so part of me doesn't know what to really attribute to what happened, but I totally do myself just attribute the fact that once the cast stepped into David's costumes, suddenly they all, in my mind, saw what the show really was and started playing and having so much fun with each other. Before that, they were in their heads and what is the mechanics of the show? And they stepped into costumes and were like, I know what this character is now.
Yeah, the costumes really set a lot of the tone of the show in such a lovely way. And I think David was really particular about wanting to sort of nod to the animals that are being portrayed on stage, but not have a kind of facsimile of that animal on stage. So Snail has a backpack that looks a little bit like a snail shell, and Lizard has a pool noodle that looks like a tail, and things like that, which I think, I really loved that idea, and that it really allowed the actors to kind of further embody these characters in a really lovely way. Once you give a person playing a bird a feather boa, there's just going to be more bird.
And feathers everywhere. That we still keep finding. So once David came in, insanely grateful to what David did, because again, whether it is the short rehearsal period, and that was actually just the natural moment, the actors were all ready to step out of just the mechanics of where do I need to be and what is my actual line. And if they were just at that point, and it happened to coincide with the costumes, but I still swear it's the costumes themselves. So beyond grateful for David stepping in to fill in this task of creating at least, probably 24 different outfits between
Wow.
the
Because
5
you've got
actors.
each character, and then each character in multiple seasons. And so, yeah, we have a lot of planning to do.
One of my
Basically
favorite
did that in
parts
6
was,
weeks.
So he did all the costumes in 6 weeks?
Basically 6 weeks.
That's amazing. 24 costumes in 6 weeks? He didn't do it all by himself.
A lot of it.
The majority of it he did. We do have a wonderful costume assistant, Sulu, who is in charge of all of the quick changes backstage and costume care and repairs and things like that. And has been a lifesaver, but mostly just David. A lot of stuff we ordered and then quick rig or altered in some way. What were you gonna say, Sulu?
oh, I was just, I came on opening preview, and I just lost it. These guys know I was jumping up and down like a 6-year-old. But what I particularly loved was that you got some of the best actors in Santa Fe on that stage. And yet, there's nothing at all about this story that is talking down to children or anything else. I mean, you can really see that they're all stretching to create something totally new that I don't think I've ever seen. So that's why I was so delighted to hear that you all had such a success, because I had a feeling that nobody's seen anything quite like this. Bravo.
That's a wonderful compliment.
And we'll expand on that in a moment. Just want to make sure we cover all of our creative team. So Saidi Khalsa is the sound designer. Saibi's parents own Chocolate Maven. But Saibi travels all over the U.S. doing sound design and actual board op, but the actual the formal technical side of the board op for professional companies all over the United States and regional theaters. So Saibi was then the next to fully join in on the production team, and I gave her ideas of what I was thinking of, and there were moments that in the tracks, while you would love to have a full orchestra, you can't have a full orchestra here, especially once you see just how filled this stage is by itself. You can't do a full orchestra here. Like there were moments that, like if you listen to the Broadway recording, there are additional sounds that are in there that are not in the tracks, that are what would typically be percussion-based sounds and Foley effects in an orchestra pit that weren't in the tracks. And it's like, the show really needs those effects. And she went ahead and not only found those moments as well and created her own versions, like she created her own sound cue, she did her own Foley to bring into this show, but then found so many more moments throughout the show.
Oh, cool.
And it never ceases to amaze me how sound, like, and it is completely a stark contrast when you're in the rehearsal room and you don't have any of the sound effects, and then you hear the sound effects and see the show for the first time when you're actually on the stage doing tech, and how suddenly you just feel like you're in a totally different place just by sound, and Simon does this.
I have been concerned that a sound designer might find this show a little boring because we're doing tracks and it's sort of putting those tracks into a program and then the stage manager hits go and that's that. But in addition to modifying some of those tracks for us, yeah, Saibi was also able to add a lot of her own little flourishes that really, I feel like, created this world for us and really helped us cue into what season we're in. We hear, a cold wind blowing, or
Rustling
hear
leaves.
crickets and summertime sounds and things like that, which was really lovely to see everything that she was able to add and how she was able to bring her own ideas and personality to what I, as a non-sound designer, would have thought was a very basic, boring show.
So lovely. And then we have Eliana O'Brien, who is the musical director for the show. And what's Eliana coming up? So Eliana is a fantastic jazz instrumentalist and jazz vocalist. So if you ever have the chance to see an Eliana O'Brien concert, go and listen. But then she came in, and so you had mentioned that we have 5 great actors. They're also pretty damn great singers by themselves. And she even found ways to manipulate their voices that you're just like, oh, I've never heard that sound come out of you. Where'd you get that out of? Oh my God!
It was so nice to be, in the rehearsal room going, that's a little quiet, or that's sounding a little off, and then the actors would go and work with her for 20 minutes and come back, and suddenly it was perfect.
So this was also her first time doing musical direction for a show. We hope it's not her last time. Hope we didn't scare her away.
Now, what does a musical director do that a director doesn't do?
So, musical director would be, particularly if it were not a track-based show, musical directors are also usually pulled in and are the conductor for the pit in most professional companies. But the musical director is there literally to make sure that the cast is singing, blending, and creating the sound that needs to be created, as well as then providing the technique lessons if there is a unique technique that you need to apply to your vocal instrument to try to achieve the sound that the musical director has in their mind for what needs to work in a show.
The cast's vocal coach, and in this case too, was helping figure out who would be singing which harmony line and making sure that all the actors felt comfortable with what harmony lines they would be singing. She created specific personalized tracks for each actor so they could listen along to just their part for each song and help learn that way. Because it's so hard, when you're learning a harmony and then suddenly there's someone next to you singing a different harmony to keep hold of what you've just learned. So she was very helpful in teaching our actors that.
So your musical director is also very much responsible for the dynamics of the show as well, the vocal dynamics. Where do you actually need to go loud, where do you need to go soft to actually convey the emotional intent of the song. As a director, I can say it's not reading, but as a musical director, I need a musical director there to tell the singer how to actually achieve that emotional intent with their voice.
I love that you're doing the little snippets at the libraries to bring the kids in. And you were saying before the show that just a few hours ago you were snail at the library. And what have been the reactions to, at the library? Do you want to share anything about that? Or you don't have the scenery and the whole deal with you?
So this is the first time for doing that.
The Playhouse is particularly this year kind of fostering more of a connection with the library. So the melodrama performed at the Southside Library earlier in the year, and now we're doing a couple of days of outreach with reading some stories and performing a few songs for folks.
So today at the Southside Library, it was a little just half-hour segment, and what I equally loved is that, Karen Ryan and Terry Scullin, who are in the female voices of the ensemble, that then are, everybody, it's, with how the show ends up getting cut for the Theater for Young Audiences version of the show, it really is a 5-person ensemble piece. There isn't a particular star in this version of the show.
That's one of the things I love about it. It's a very ensemble piece.
They, in the back, when we found out we were doing this library, were like, okay, here's what we're going to do, and then we're going to sing this, and they created the show that we put on at the library backstage. God love Terry and Karen, which I, for some reason, keep calling Carrie. They're grouping together. So they're reading stories from Arnold Lobel's original books that are all stories that are fully captured in the version of the show that we're doing. And then they themselves went through and picked out what songs they wanted interwoven into the stories that were being told. And then we found out that Bear was not available to do today's performance as the snail, and so then I had to go in and be the snail.
Just like back in January.
Just like back in January. I'm perfectly happy to not belt high A's anymore.
We are doing another library performance on Friday afternoon at 4 o'clock.
Friday at 4 where?
At the main library here in downtown. But today we had, if I had to guess, probably 10 to 15 families that showed up.
Oh, great.
And literally, parents were loving it, the kids were having a blast. Kid age ranges, I would, and listen to me guessing because I'm not a kids person, would have been probably like 3 to 9
Wow.
that showed up. And there, again, were probably 10 little kids that were there, riveted on Karen as she was reading and telling stories and enacting the stories as she was telling them. And then I stole the show from Karen when I came on singing with the snail backpack on. But it seemed to go over very, very well, and I hope it's something that the Playhouse continues with the libraries in town, because it really is an equivalent art form of literature and theater. You need both to complement each other.
Is there a favorite song?
Do we go to choreography now and sing?
And we'd love to hear it and why.
I'm sure we all have our own favorite songs. I'll let you give your favorite song, or at
That's
least
true.
the
Well,
one that
mine
sticks in your head.
changed, because during tech, there's a song called Get a Load of Toad that probably has 70 light cues in it, and it's a 3-minute song, and so it's a lot of button pushing, which is really fun for me, and it's a really fun challenge, and this has been such a fun show to work on, and it's lovely to be a part of a show that everyone is having so much fun with. So I'll run that song just for myself as a warm-up before performances, and when I start running the sound, all the actors come running from backstage to come in at their moment and sing. And the crew, I'll hear them singing from up in the booth, and anybody walking through the theater will join in and start singing too. So every song is kind of contagious in that way, but that's probably my favorite.
So my favorite is He'll Never Know, which is Little Soft Shoe,
Oh, yeah.
If anybody was at the
the gala.
Playhouse Gala on November 5th,
Yes.
the cast performed that song for the gala.
That just speaks to me because it's naturally I'm a tap dancer at heart originally, so I hear that rhythm and I'm like, yes, I'm at home. So I gotta say, cover choreography. So kind of tying into how do you not play down to kids. In creating the show, so I, again, I did not grow up with the books. My intent in doing the show, knowing that it was going to be intended for young audiences, was to introduce kids to everything that I love about theater. I would not say that anything is in any way, shape, or form presented as a, here is the lesson that you need to learn. This is why I love theater. That's the only way that I can describe of why it doesn't play down. It is just,
It comes across.
here is joy and
Yeah.
love, and people loving doing what they're doing and having a fun time doing what they're doing. And you just hope that that is enough, that your love and joy of something translates and breeds this love and joy to an audience member.
Well, I think that's so important and necessary after what a hard couple of years we've all had to do something that's purely joyful and so centered around community and being part of a community and friendship and love. I think that's such a great lesson right now for all of us. And it's been so lovely to have folks come up after the show and say, it's so nice to just have fun and be joyful and colorful and bright and loud and big. And I think that's so needed right now. It's really been warming my heart.
My heart has been, get through, survive.
Now it's open.
You got 10 rehearsals to get it up and do a design run. Go.
Yeah.
So it sounds like you guys are saying it's about time, or why haven't we done this before, or whatever. So,
I don't know if I'm saying that, I'm just saying this is really nice.
Again, so knowing that it was for kids, and I do not have kids myself, I did not know, or I had no intent of how to communicate with them. I just went into it with I want to foster people loving, a new generation loving theater. And I'm just going to put as much love and joy into it and have as much fun with it, hoping that the kids and the children's at heart, for the adults, equally love what is happening up on the stage.
How many children are you getting in the audience at 7:30 at night?
Well, we've only had one performance so far. We had opening night on Saturday, and then preview performances. But we've got a lot of matinees coming up that are selling out very quickly, and we have some particular student matinees where we're bringing in kids from schools
Great.
just to see it, which is lovely. So I imagine we'll have a good crowds of kiddos. But
It's
It's also
probably
been-
about 10 kids for the 2 preview, or each night for the 7:30 previews that we've been having.
Kids and adults alike have been enjoying it. It's really fun to sit up in the booth and hear the whole crowd go, aww.
So continuing on with how do you do this show and communicate this show, knowing that I wanted kids to love musical theater, I also don't know what their level of exposure to musical theater. So literally crammed in every type of musical theater reference that we could into this show, with both honest integrity so that they actually truly appreciate what is actually happening, or that art form, to then be able to, hopefully in the future, they come across the shows that are actually being referenced in the choreography or the costuming or the staging, but then also being a complete send-up to the art form so that the adults see it from a different level and are like, I totally recognize, oh my gosh, and get the comedy of the self-referential side of it.
Well, and the music really allows for that too. There's such a variety of music styles in this show. In an hour, it's kind of a little tour of the seasons
The
and
entire
different
canon.
music styles and different kind of winking at different theater references. And so that's been really fun.
So that we don't get bored, we tried to do our best to hodgepodge theatrical styles that you would not consider going together. Like we have a hodgepodge in He'll Never Know of inspiration of Singing in the Rain, and inspiration of the Manson Trio number from Pippin's Glory.
Okay.
Smushed together while raking leaves
Yes.
and doing soft shoe. So it just so that I would not go out of my mind while creating it. For choreography, I looked for what are interesting juxtapositions of styles that were out there that still make complete sense with the story that's being
But
told.
that's part of the fun of it, is there's not a scene in it that's exactly what you expect. You know, they've all got that variety.
Yes.
Woo-hoo. Patrick, what is your background in choreography? It sounds like you have all of these languages of dance at your fingertips.
Sheep.
Sheep?
Tap dancing sheep.
Oh!
Choreographing tap dance sheep
I
for
feel
us,
money
for
to
us
see
like-
that.
I started dancing when I was 3 years old in Detroit suburbs, and then kept dancing when I was late single digits and early teens. I did just kind of want to be a dancer on Broadway. Then had other family issues happen and fell in love with roller coasters and decided I wanted to design roller coasters, so I became an engineer, and then went into the amusement park industry and found out I didn't want to design roller coasters and came out here as an engineer. But I grew up as a dancer. I had the good fortune of being a student of a student of a student of Fosse's. So my dance teacher's teacher was one of Fosse's dancers. So I grew up loving musical theater as a performance means. Danced professionally as a late teenager. So occasionally national tours come through and they're looking for people to finish filling in the cast. Sometimes it is just as an understudy or a swing for a dancer. Can't tell you how many shows I've swung. And so I started doing a whole bunch of national tour swing fill-ins just for different tours, only in Detroit proper. And then was also a competitive tap dancer, and so also then traveled the U.S. doing tap dance that way. If you talk to my parents growing up, they would tell you that I could not carry a tune to save my life. I don't know if that's necessarily the case now. I still feel that way because you carry your childhood traumas with you. So I consider myself able to carry a tune, but it is totally because of having them to be in those where they're like, we need you as a dancer. I can turn off his mic right now. Okay. And you have enough fantastic musical directors that you interact with that you actually then eventually develop the proper skills to at least be to the point where they don't want to turn off your mic while you're performing. So 3 to 18 in Detroit, actual professional dance training, and then went off to school to become an engineer, still dance for my soul. Came into Los Alamos, they found out that they needed a tap dance teacher in Los Alamos at the dance school that they have up there, and got pulled into, because they did a show up there, and they're like, oh, you dance, teach, go. I'm not a teacher.
You are now.
I am now. I'm a choreographer. And then I've been choreographing since, well, technically always, but Patrick, when you get your own studio, so I'm a dance teacher. Actually doing shows for choreography starting in probably 2006 time period. So when I was 26.
Great.
And kept going from there.
And here you are.
And here I am.
I want to be sure everybody gets a chance to ask their question. We've been really spontaneous here, but any hands in the air? And I know you can go on talking for hours, so whatever, just raise your hand for these guys.
It's a
And
process
keep on
of
going.
love and compromise.
I love the process. This is the unearthing and the backstory that a lot of people don't get the opportunity to hear. What
guys, before you even opening night, had this immense machine going of recognition of talent and expression and creativity and all that. That's for me, now the backstory to this show. When I see it Saturday, I know I will have it another. So you keep going, but I just want to make sure everybody feels comfortable putting a hand in the air.
Do you have to do music cues as well as light cues?
Yes, I'm running lights and sound. So it's a lot of that throughout the course of the show. But a lot of the sound cues are just, at least the sound cues go at the same time as the light cues. So my brain isn't too split, but yes, I'm running both for this particular one. And then we have a 2-person running crew who's dealing with any set changes and props coming on stage you might see. And then our lovely costume associate who's in the dressing rooms helping everybody with their quick change.
So the soundtrack doesn't run continuously, you start and stop it.
That's right.
So how does that affect your spreadsheet of times to change?
We're pretty close. This show is running with the house speech and curtain call. It's running exactly 1 hour and 3 minutes every night.
Audience adds with laughter.
That's true. Opening night we added a minute because of laughter and applause, which is great. We'd love to add some more.
Ellie, you had your hand in the air.
Excuse me, I would want to buy a ticket to any show where someone coordinates those fabulous shoes with the stripe, with their sweater and your socks with your pants. I'm sold. I'm totally sold.
Patrick and I love bonding over shoes.
That brings in Colin. Come, your cue. Your sound, your light, everything.
Hello, everyone.
Hi, Colin.
I'm Colin. I'm the executive director
Colin,
here.
could you
Come into the light.
in the light?
I'm the executive director here at the Santa Fe Playhouse. And I just wanted to say thank you for being here, and thank you for your interest, and thank you both for your insight and your wisdom and all your gifts to bring this show to life. I'm here, and there's a computer in the box office if you did want to buy tickets. We absolutely have tickets that we can sell here at the door.
Emily's directing next season. Get your season pass.
Get your flex pass.
That's the other thing, is we have subscriptions for next season, either 6-pack or 9-pack subscriptions. And they're a little bit different than a traditional subscription where you get one ticket for every show. And if you miss a show, it's like kind of a hassle to move it around. Instead, it's a flex pass subscription. So you get 9 for all of the main stage shows and the skeletal series presentations. And if you decide, oh my God, I just love this first show, I want to bring 8 of my friends, you just use them all in one night. Or if you want to use one for every single show, you can. Or if you miss one show and then the next one, you go, I'm going to bring a friend to
You
this
buy
one.
6 more.
And you can buy another one. Yeah. So you get an additional discount off of the discounts that are already up there. And with those flex passes, you get a reserved seat, so you don't have to elbow your way to your favorite seat. So there's some nice benefits to that. If you're interested, we could help you out with one of those as well.
That's brilliant.
Yeah. It's
Thank
nice.
you. For
it's a
those
nice,
of us who travel a
Yeah.
lot, that's really good.
It's a nice way of keeping the subscription model alive,
Yeah.
while still having the flexibility of the membership model where you get like discounted tickets and you have to buy them. You buy them in one chunk, and then you can move them around. Yeah.
So do you have a brochure for this
I do.
coming season up front?
Yes, there
Yes.
should still be some brochures out front.
Yes.
This purple brochures. It's a very, very exciting season. We're doing a musical, a very big musical, Gentleman's Guide to Love and Murder, which is
Right.
I pity that soul who's screaming.
we're doing a thriller that is very dark, but I saw it at a Contemporary American Theater Festival years ago, and I was biting my nails the entire time. It's by Stephen Dietz, a lovely playwright, who does a lot of TYA theater, and then also wrote a version of Dracula that's been produced all over the country, and wrote this thriller about a woman fighting to get her daughter back from a cult. So she hires somebody to kidnap her daughter back. So it's very dark. So we do TYA theater and musicals, and we do very dark things, all sorts of things across the spectrum. And we're bringing a couple artists back, or a couple artists out, presentations throughout the year. So you can read all about that. Some really exciting stuff. And we have the Playhouse Studio. So one of the things that we're committed to, I hope I'm not taking up too much time.
No, it's what we're here for.
One of the things that we're really committed to here at the Playhouse is is finding ways to engage with people interested in cultivating their skills, growing their skills, so that they can be on stage in a more full and supported way. So with the Playhouse Studio, we have a director for that Playhouse Studio this year. There'll be 6 different semesters, which are like a month and a half long, and each will focus on a different thing, from bass acting techniques and script analysis, to working with Shakespeare, to voice work, to directing. So there's a whole breadth of things within the Playhouse Studio. And one of the sub-programs of those 6 semesters, we have a summer youth intensive, which we kicked off this year. We had 10 participants. It was adorable. Did a production of As You Like It in 2 weeks with these 10 young, like middle school age, 12 to 18. And this coming year, we're doing 3 weeks. And next year being FY24, we're going to do 2 different programs, a Shakespeare and a musical theater summer youth intensive.
Wow.
So we're really trying to commit not just to people that are outside of the house, but like to those that are like passionate about learning about theater and they're still in high school and they're wondering where they might see themselves in a career, either backstage or on stage. It's a viable career, believe it or not. It's challenging, but you can make a living doing it. So yeah, so that's sort of a grand overview of what's going on.
Terrific. It seems
Yeah.
like the Playhouse keeps expanding and growing every year.
Wow.
Absolutely, this was our centennial year, so we've finished 100 years, and now we're starting again. This is year 1, is next year. It's our first year, and there's a lot of things that are growing out of that. We had our first centennial gala, which was very exciting at La Fonda, which also turned 100 this year. We were able to raise a lot of money to support the Summer Youth Intensive. We were able to secure some season sponsorships that are really going to help us elevate and pay our artists. One of the things that I don't know if you ever talk about at these events is how, I don't want to say poorly, but how difficult it is fundraising for theater. If you want to make a fortune in the theater, a small fortune in the theater, you start out with a large fortune. And it's a good joke, a producer's joke. But it's really sad when you find out how much actors get paid. When I was in DC for 15 years and I mentioned to a donor how much actors get paid, their jaw would hit the floor, especially in non-equity. Even in equity houses, even in quote-unquote professional houses like the Seattle Reps, the Guthries, actors are getting paid $800 a week maybe, total. And it's FICA is taken out of that, taxes are taken out of that. And so like you can imagine, that's a $14 million annual operating budget. We are not. But we've really committed to paying artists more. Every year we increase how much we're paying them, and the only way we can do that was with donations, generous sponsorships and donations. And we raised our ticket prices and created different ticket structures. And we are going to have rush tickets next year. So if you wait until 5 minutes or 10 minutes before the performance on the day of, you get a ticket for like very cheap.
Oh,
$5.
excellent.
So that way, like maybe high school students that don't even want to pay $15 can make sure that they have a seat. And also we pay what you can previews to make sure that there's access, and we still have the general admission at $30, senior at $27, and student at $15. There's additional tickets of $50 if you want to reserve a seat, and $75 if you want to help support the rush tickets and then pay what you can. You pay a little bit extra, which is really a donation to help support making it accessible. So that's all. I'll be in the lobby if you want to chat. If you want to pick up a brochure, if you want to buy tickets or a flex pass.
Take a
Oh,
card.
Already.
Yes.
I'll meet you right out in the lobby.
I'll have a flex pack.
Awesome, I love it.
Before I change my mind.
Thank
Which
you
one?
all.
What's
If
the
you are coming to the show, I sincerely hope you enjoy it. I'm sure Emma.
We'll see you there.
Make sure when there's that final mwah back up to the booth that you're applauding up to the minutes.